this video, we're going to be writing trailer music with free sample libraries. Spitfire Audios BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover, Keepforest, Risenge, Devastator Warzone, and Ferrum. A whole bunch of free plugins, some free learning resources, all the stuff that comes with Logic, obviously. And my free template. Okay, so that was the track that I wrote just using free sample libraries, plus some of the stuff that comes with Logic, and a whole bunch of processing that I've done as well. So yeah, this is basically for anybody who's interested in writing trailer music, wants to kind of get their feet wet a little bit, but doesn't want, or is a bit daunted or intimidated by the big price tags on some of these big sample libraries. If you want to just have a little practice, if you want to try and figure out how the structure works, how to write a trailer track, how to do the orchestration, just how all the different sounds work together, but you don't want to spend or make that kind of investment, this is a great place to start, because there are some great free libraries out there for you to play around with. So let's take a look at the libraries that I'm going to be using. This is my free trailer template, or my free blank template. I go over it in other videos. It's basically got all the routing already done, all the groups already made, all the track stacks already made, the send effects routed back into the track stacks, and then all the track stack output sent to audio channels for the stemming, and then I just load up instruments by saving them as Logic presets, and then in the Logic browser, and then I just load them into the blank instrument tracks, and then duplicate and load up different instruments as I go along. That's how I create my templates, and that's how I do fast stemming, and I go over all this in other videos. So before I was just giving away a single template, just this one up here, this blank template. I've now added to it. I've added this second template, which is BBC Discover, which is an orchestral template, and this third template I've added, which is a trailer template, which includes all of the libraries that I talked about, and it is basically this template here. All of these sounds and instruments that I used to create this track is included in this free trailer template. And then I have created a whole bunch of presets for all of the different instruments, which we can see here. If we open up Logic's browser, as you can see, this track stack here is part of this Logic browser, and I've created presets for all of the instruments that I have used in this template, including as well these are the ones for the BBC Discover, which is the Spitfire instrument, the free instrument, which is an orchestral instrument. As you can see here, it's got all the different sections inside an orchestra with a couple of articulations for each one. It's completely free, complete orchestra, and I have saved all of those as presets inside Logic's browser, which you can find here in this freebie again from my Selfie store. And then I've also done the same with Devastator Warzone free edition, Ferrum free edition, Risenge. They just give you WAV files for that, so I've created some EXS sampler instruments, which you can load into your sample instrument folder, and then obviously these are the presets that you put into Logic's browser in order to load them up from here. And these are every single patch from these free libraries, and I've loaded them all into this template. So this template here is, like I say, the is this template. And if you want to just quickly show you how to load them all in, new Finder window, you need to go into your music folder, and you need to go into audio music apps. All these templates, they belong in the project templates folder right here. All of the presets, which is this folder, and this folder, and this folder, they all go into patches, and then into instruments, and then you create a folder for whichever developer. So for the BBC Discover, that would be Spitfire, and for all the others, it would be a Keepforest folder. You have to create those yourself and stick these inside of them. And then the sampler instruments, this Risenge free folder, that goes into your sampler instruments folder here. And that's how you load them all in. And then you're ready to go. You will have to go and download the sounds. This is my Selfie store. This is where you can find the template and the presets, plus a whole bunch of stuff that I've done for other sample libraries. Spitfire Audio. This is where you will find the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover. Just go onto their website. Also, a part of the template is their Labs soft piano, which you can find here, I think, in the free section here. And then this is the Keepforest website. They have a free section where they have demo versions of all of these. Basically, you do have to keep in mind that Keepforest have said repeatedly that these are for demo purposes only. You can't use these in commercial projects. So if you do decide that your track is something you really like and you want to release it, and you use any of these samples, you will have to go and buy the actual library, or you may get people from Keepforest knocking on your door. I also use this Supermassive as a free reverb plugin from Valhallas. They've got a whole bunch of others, but this one's free, and it's basically for doing those huge reverbs, which is great for stuff like booms and pings and stuff. I also use OTT, which is a multi-band compressor from Xfer. These are the people that make Serum. This is based on a preset from Ableton Live's multi-band compressor. They turned that single preset into a VST. Then there's a whole bunch of free plugins from Kilohertz. These are very similar to the ones you get in Logic anyway, but a different flavour. And same with the Melder production. And as far as learning resources is concerned, Alex Xfer, I think I say pronounce his name. I'm terrible at pronouncing his name. And Richard Prynne are two YouTube channels that I would definitely recommend. Both do tutorials on writing trailing music. Alex also does writing games music. Alex tends to just concentrate on like the hybrid orchestral stuff. Richard Prynne, he does a lot of horror stuff, but his kind of tutorials just cover a whole range of different styles, and both of these guys have their own websites doing courses. Richard has the Trailing Music School, where you can download if you go on here somewhere, you can download a free graphic, which I've actually got as my wallpaper, which shows you the structure and what to put into your different acts in the trailing music track. So if you know nothing about trailing music, this is an excellent little graphic to go download, which, like I say, you can get from his website, the Trailing Music School. And then he's got a whole bunch of courses here. Alex has got a few websites. He does, like I say, games music and trailer music, but you can find a free version of his trailer course. It's like a taster. 3 separate tutorials, and then at the end of it, once you've completed that, you get the option of signing up to his actual trailer course. And he also has a games trailer course and like an audio entrepreneurs course as well, and these are both great sets of courses. I've done all of them, and I can really recommend them and their websites as well. So yeah, that is all the free stuff that I'm going to be using here, or have used. So yeah, let's take a quick look. We have taken a quick look. We took a quick look at Discover. Let's take a quick look at the interface for the Devastator stuff. If you see my Devastator Pro Breakout Pro video, it's a very, very similar, if not identical, interface. This is the ADSR over here. Then you've got like quite an extensive reverb control section over here, little filter. This is your actual sample. Down here is all your samples, and this here you can pick what pitch they're going to play, and then you've got stretch mode. If you pick a sample and you hit stretch mode, you can play it like a keyboard. That's more useful for like tonal stuff rather than hits. From hit, most of these are whoosh hits. You could do a from hit and it just plays it from the hit. And then it's also got an effects section where you can load a whole bunch of effects. These are the built-in contact effects, and then a rhythm section, which is like a step sequencer. You could just like create your own rhythms. Great for doing like little triplet stuff. That's what I use it for. And you can assign that to step sequencer, and then pan, filter. I think pan and pitch have their own separate. This is kind of like left and right. And then you activate them by turning this on and off, and then pitches, obviously you can up however many semitones or down however many semitones, and again you can turn it on and off here, and you can affect the timing of it here. So that's a great little kind of step sequencer that's part of the library as well. And then Ferrum is more of a kind of like a soundstage interface, as you can see here. And then there's your round robins down here, and you've got a few controls over like ADSR and how the velocity affects the sound. Again, you've got another step sequencer, and again, you've got some more effects. And this is like these are like your mic positions. Here is just like one mic position, your close mics, and then in reverb, and that's how you control your sound stage. And then obviously left and right is like panning. And obviously in the more the paid for commercial version, you have some more mic positions, and all of these kind of sounds are spread over different patches. This is just like an amalgamation of all the different sounds that you'll find in the actual version. So yeah, that's the oh, and then like I said, I did create some sampler instruments for the Risenge WAV files. They had a whole bunch of different things. They've got some hits. Risenge is kind of like a riser library, but it also has some hits in it as well, and some downers, some drops and stuff like that, and some just transition sounds. But I created sampler instruments, and these are all, like I say, saved as presets inside where we've got Warzone 3 edition. These are all the presets for the Devastator Warzone, and yeah, like I say, these are all the ones over here for the Spitfire ones. And I've saved the Spitfire ones as track stacks as well, so that the articulations are all together in a track stack. So, like for instance here, horns, long and short. So yeah, that is the libraries and the interfaces. Let's take a look at what I did to create this track using them. So I started off by splitting up the track into the acts. 3 acts and a little tiny 4th act, separations in between the acts for just separating the acts, basically just anything that makes an editor's life easier. And it helps to increase the intensity as well. I followed a kind of a formula that was developed by Richard Prin, or he certainly uses it in one of his courses, the Hybrid Training Music course. Start off by just laying down the hits. So I start off with the booms in Act 1. and then in Act 2 layered that with hits. Just at the end of every, or the beginning of every few bars, and then in Act 3 even more hits. And then Act 4 is even more frequent. So even here you can see the rising intensity. Booms plus trailers, then increases in frequency, increases even more in frequency. So it's just increasing intensity. So once you've got these booms and these trailer hits sketched out, that's kind of like the kind of sketch of your track done. And it's kind of, it kind of takes away that blank screen syndrome you get, because you know basically this is your structure, this is where your hit points are, this is where like your chord changes are, stuff like that. You just now have to fill in the blanks, as it were. So once I'd put in the hits and kind of every few bars, like I say, for the Act 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Actually, I did Act 4 at the end. I didn't do that straight away. I only did as far as Act 3, and then I kind of added Act 4 right at the end of writing the track. In Richard Prin's course, he then puts in the rises. I kind of skipped that bit and I went straight to chord progressions. Now, I wasn't sure where to start with this. And some advice that a guy called Mike Verter, who does some other masterclasses, look him up, Mike Verter's masterclasses, I think they're called, or just mikeverter.com. He does stuff for film music. They're great classes, and he basically says when you're facing that blank screen, you don't know what to do, just play anything. And so I just played something I knew, which was standard trailer music chord progression, which is the 1, 6, 7, and I always seem to play in C minor. Or I think I did it more like this. Very standard, very cliched chord progression. And then obviously I didn't like that. I wanted to do something different, and I started playing around with the B major. B flat major, and then I kind of went up to the did I do that? No, I didn't. I did that. The F sharp. That's what I did. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did. The B major going up to the F sharp. Didn't sound quite right, so I kind of went for the B flat minor instead. And then I kind of to give it kind of a superhero feel, I went with E flat after that. So let me see. Hang on. Which is something I do quite a bit. So it's in a minor key, in this case B flat minor, and then I go down. I think it's even the 6, isn't it? The F sharp after B flat minor, and then E flat major isn't in that particular scale, but I find if I switch it out instead, it should be an E flat minor. But I find if I just add that major third, it just gives it that kind of superhero feel. Sounds a bit Avengers-y. But then as a happy accident, again, a song I've used quite a bit, as a happy accident, I played it wrong, and I ended up putting in the E flat sus4, and that just gave it a bit of a harmony, a bit of a tonality that I quite liked. So that is what I went with, and that is the chord progression for the entire track. And what I've done is just to kind of what's the word? Create variation in it. I have it rising the whole way through, so you don't really hear that chord progression in Act 1. That's just kind of sound effects, but it comes in Act 2. Mostly you hear it firstly in the short strings, and it bring in with the viola, and I've got like a let me see what I forgot. Where is it? Is it just a backwards and forwards arpeggio pattern? It comes in with the violas. I think the celli are just doing they're just doing bass notes. It's rising in velocity. Musically, it's not rising yet, but here in Act 3 you can see I'm switching around, I'm inverting it, and I do the same because it's all the same pattern with all of the different, except for these bass parts. But so violin 1s up here in quite a high octave, violin 2s the same octave of viola, and so that's the celli. Viola an octave below them, actually 2 octaves below them, and then the celli below that doing the bass part, and then the bass even lower than that, and then I've got the strings just playing the same chords, just block chords. And again, I got it rising, but it's exactly the same chords. It's just instead of an arpeggio, it's just the block chords, and that's basically acting like pads in the background. And I've got those coming in Act 2 as well. So that's what I did. Oh, I took out some of the notes here. I just kind of started off with 3 and then kind of gradually added more, and obviously here a lot more. So it's just like the bass, a couple of notes from the harmony, and then adding in more harmony notes as it progresses. I think I started off with this, and then I took some notes away until it created this kind of pattern of like spreading out in both high notes and low notes, which is some trick I learned somewhere. Someone in some YouTube video talked about it, and I decided to use it. So yeah, same chord progression, same notes, just these are long notes, these are short notes. And that's what I did after laying down the booms and the hits. I laid down the chord progression, and I did the spiccatos and the long notes, and then I decided to layer those with some synth stuff. So I've got some pads here. These are just pads from Alchemy, just following the same chord progression. Some weird little textures there, and that's just going with the and I think I've got an auto filter on these. Yeah, auto filter cut off, so they're just gradually opening up, getting more bright as the second act goes, and in the third act there's just full. So yeah, that's the pads layered up with the long strings, and then for the short strings, I had in the synth section, I had this kind of lead sound. Let's take out those and those, and that's just layered over the top. Just to give it a bit of extra kind of like, you know, hybrid sounds to the spiccato strings. And again, that has an auto filter opening up. And then I've doubled it up with 1 octave below when it comes in Act 3. So that's where I was. I had the strings, I had the spiccatos, I had these this lead sound, I had the pads, and I had the hits, and that's how I progressed with the track. And it was at that point I decided to add some risers. In Richard Prin's courses, he does the risers first. I decided to stick them in afterwards. These, like I say, these are all risers from all of the libraries that I've used, and I've just bounced them down as audio files, and I think I've increased the gain in them. So what did I create first? I did this long riser at the end. I think I time stretched some of these as well. Nice little suck back effect there that I use repeatedly. So I added all of these risers and this little suck back to Act 3, and then I think I went to work on Act 1. Sorry, not Act 1, Act 2. I copied some of these string parts over with the synths and the pads and the hits, and I decided to add a couple of pulses as well. One of the pulses was from Alchemy, and another was from Devastator. And the Devastator one, I have again put an auto filter in, just making it brighter as it goes along. I'd also decided to add a drone. The drone is from Alchemy, and I didn't put an auto filter there. I think I just used it as a drone. I then copied it afterwards into Act 1 and put an auto filter on it there. So we had cut down versions of the strings and the synths from Act 3. I copied over into Act 2, took away some of the notes, some of the harmonies, and I just increased or created rises in the intensity, in the velocities. So for the short strings, as you can see, I've got loads of rising intensity, and then I started off with just the violas and the cello, and then added in the violins afterwards. That's creating increased intensity. And like I showed you earlier, the long strings, I started off with just a bit of harmony, and then added more as the Act 2 progressed, and adding in these kind of filter sweeps, these opening up of the filters on all of these synth parts does the same thing. It's just kind of brightening up the sound and creating rising intensity as Act 2 progresses, because obviously Act 2 is just building. Act 1 and Act 2 is building. Act 3 is kind of like the finale. It's like the main event. the pads as well. I think I just copied the same pattern that I used for the long strings, just copied it down for the pads, and again used this auto filter to increase the intensity of them. So let's have a look at pads. Oh, I already showed you that earlier anyway, didn't I? So yes, so I had my Act 3 fleshed out and my Act 2 fleshed out by this point. I think then that's when I decided to add some percussion from Ferrum. I started doing the percussion in Act 3 first. What I did quite a frenetic pattern to start off with, just playing it in on the keyboard, just myself here. And then what I did afterwards, because there was too much going on, I came in and I started deleting notes out. So to start off with, the whole thing looked something like this, and then I decided to just delete notes out here, so it sounded more like it was building more, and it wasn't straight away so frenetic. And these percussion sounds, they're like hits, they're like trailer hits, but in the percussion round robin format, they go really well with the hits. And after adding the percussion, which, like I say, towards the end gets quite frenetic. I decided to emphasize the hit points with some Braams. One was just a WAV file from the Azerx tripag. I quite like that thunder in the background as well. And then I did a couple from the bass patch from Devastator Warzone. So that's like a brass patch and a bass patch, and I think I put an auto filter on them. I don't think I've automated it. I think I've just oh no, that's the wrong patch. This one. No auto filter. I think I just left it at like 36% all the way through the track. I just wanted to take out a lot of the highs and just have this kind of bassy sound, which goes quite well with this other Braam as well. And that's just emphasizing the complete chord progression. So I think from there to there is one pass of the chord progression, and so it's just the beginning of each section is the Braams. So that's some hit points there. And then I copied them over, these ones over to Act 2. And that was my Act 1 and, my Act 3 and Act 2 fleshed out with Braams, synth stuff, drones, pads, strings. What's these sound as I'm doing? I added these in later. I added these in after I started Act 1. So these weren't in at this stage when I was creating the track. Oh, neither was that bit. I added that bit in later as well. This playable wasn't in it either. So I was kind of working backwards. After fleshing out with creating the structure with the hits and the booms, created the chord progression in Act 3, brought that chord progression back into Act 2. I was working backwards because I hadn't even started in Act 1 yet. This is all completely blank except for the booms. So what I did then, I think I did start working on Act 1 at this point, and I brought the drone over to Act 1, and I added the filter sweep, the auto filter, raising it, creating it more bright, so it kind of gradually came in. Added some of these Braams from Act 3, brought them back into the beginning. Added the pulse, not the pulse from Devastator, but just the pulse from Alchemy, which is just a very simple bass pulse. Again, I've got an auto filter on it, but yeah, I just loaded up the preset and just I think I adjusted it slightly so the cutoff was really low. And then yeah, like I say, I added this drone from earlier, just slowly rising, and the Braam from earlier as well. I think I changed. Yeah, I've got the cutoff gradually increasing there as well. Not really doing a slope, just like changing it incrementally. And this is where I started adding some of my sound design stuff. So I added some pings, because pings obviously in trailers are all over it. And then I added this weird tonal loop as well, which I've got going all the way through. And again, I think, yep, I've got an auto filter gradually opening up. Did I do the same? And I've got another, bring it back down again for Act 2, and then gradually bring it up again. And then I think in Act 3, it just stays where it is. I've got that going all the way through Act 3 as well. And then in Act 2, those pings become a bit more frequent. Not very frequent, but a little bit more. And I wanted to add something extra, some sort of signature sound here, and that's when I loaded up one of these playables from Devastator. There's modern bass too, but it actually spreads quite far up the octave range. And I created a little bender, just playing in a couple of notes and then pitch bending them down. Also, when I was adding the risers to this Act 2, they've got these kind of thing called build-ups as part of the Devastator library, and it's basically a whole bunch of effects and hits all layered together, tempo synced to create a collection of sounds that go together nicely, or that they've sequenced themselves, the guys at Keepforest. And I use one of those sort of like a riser. So it's a build-up. Like I say, it's a tempo synced build-up. But when I add it to my other risers, it sort of worked. Well, just using the suck back. I haven't even used other risers there. Which is unusual. I thought I would have done. Oh well, it still works. And I use it again at the end here in Act 4. And I've got another riser there, but I'm getting ahead of myself because Act 4 was like the last thing that I did when writing this track. I did add this riser here though. Again, just bounce down one of the risers from the Risenge sample instrument I created, and had that layered with that suck back there as well. Yeah, and then after putting those risers, added the Braams, added these kind of signature sound designy stuff. Pretty much all done except for like the main part of Act 3. I needed like a melody, and I needed the brass to come in and just make this big powerful statement. And it was a very simple melody, just basically following chord tones. Just the French horns layered with trumpets. And then add tenor trombones, doing a bit of harmony. And then tubas and bass trombones doing the bass. And then to add a bit of development, a bit of kind of interest, I added a counter melody, counterpoint. Which is echoed in the trumpets. That was my main kind of finale section for Act 3. Was that big horn section, which I doubled up with these playables that I used to create the bender. I turned them into like a lead line sort of thing. Just to give the whole thing a bit more of a processed hybrid sound. And then I added a bass line in following the same notes as the tuba and bass trombone. So all of these processed synth sounds, these playables that I've created, the bass and this kind of weird lead sound, plus this sound here and the pads, they're all just supporting all the orchestral parts. So these parts here are supporting the brass, these parts are supporting the strings, and this part here is supporting the short strings. It's all just kind of like adding a hybrid flavour to the orchestral sections. I then added some woodwinds as well, piccolos, because I just wanted to add like an extra high note to the counter melody. And then add some flutes just to kind of intensify the staccato pattern of the strings, the short strings. And I just added some clarinets and oboes following this kind of horn and trumpet line, just to give it a different flavour, a different kind of timbre. So instead of it just sounding like a brass section and just a string section, it sounds more like an orchestra with those woodwinds added on top of it. It's an orchestral sound rather than just a brass and string sound. And like I say, the synthy parts underneath just kind of reinforce that and add like a hybrid flavour to the orchestral parts. And that was it. I was just tweaking with the production of it after that, and then just playing with the levels, adjusting the EQs. If you for the brass, because it's Spitfire brass, I did a bit of stuff because they don't really have like a lot of quiver effect, which is very popular in trading music. So I created my own by adding overdrive, some EQ, a lot of EQ. Oh, not on that one, but where is it? Up here. I did a lot of high gain, but if I turn all of this off, I did soothe to kind of counteract the high gain I did. Let's take that off. But so it's kind of warm. It doesn't really stand out. It's not very bright, so. Just added these effects on the brass, a lot of high gain, a bit of OTT. I've turned the depth right down, turned the high up a little bit again, just adding more and more high frequencies, and then, like I say, soothe just to counteract the harshness of all of these high frequencies I've added. So, but it does just really make it stand out in the mix now. So you can barely hear it now. And yeah, once that was it for the main part of the track. I'd done the 3 acts, and then as like an afterthought, I decided to add in a 4th act, and I thought I was just going to use trailer effects. So it's just Braams, it's just risers. I added an extra riser, this kind of synthy, like rising in pitch sound. It just sounds really intense. I brought the pings back, and I put a pitch bend on them, so that I doubled them up, so they're 2 different octaves, and then I shoved a pitch bend. I actually went in into the actual contact. I turned this on, and I actually turned up the pitch bend. Oh, maybe I didn't in this one. Oh, well. I did on the other one, didn't I? Oh, yeah, this one I've turned up. Oh, so they're not both going up at the same time. Maybe I should change this one, see what it sounds like. Go in here, pitch bend. I turn it up to 12 semitones. What does that sound like now? I think that's like a triplet pattern. I think what I did is I first did like the hits and the riser and the Braams, and then I added the percussion afterwards, and that's like a bit of a triplet pattern. And then I did the pings afterwards, to kind of following not the same pattern but similar, but it's another triplet pattern. And I just added this little. Yeah, and that's my Act 4, and finished it off with a big Braam. That's it. That is a hybrid orchestral trailer track using free sample libraries. Obviously, there's some processing going on. I use Soothe quite a bit just to tame stuff, which is obviously isn't free. But other than that, all of the and I suppose I did muck around a little bit. I don't usually master my own stuff, but because this is a YouTube video, I've mucked around a bit with Ozone 10 that came with the latest version of Complete, and I use this to kind of AI analyzer that kind of figures out what's the best thing processing to do the mastering with, and then I tweak it a bit afterwards. because I didn't quite like what it came up with. But yeah, like I say, I don't usually master my own stuff, but I did play around with that for this particular project. But other than that, I've just used kind of like EQs that come with Logic, just the console EQ and the channel EQ. I usually use Fab Filter, but for this I decided to just use the one that's built in with Logic, which is perfectly serviceable and good. I mean, it's done everything I wanted it to do. Just the interface just isn't quite as nice as the Fab Filter one. But yeah, other than Soothe and Ozone, everything else is just built-in Logic plugins, or ones you can get for free, like OTT and the Supermassive. I use the Supermassive on the hits and the booms. I've used it, and I used it on the pings down here as well, just to create a huge reverb. And other than that, all the other reverbs is just the ones that are part of my template, which will load up when you download and load this, obviously without the MIDI, but all the sounds will come with the reverbs already loaded in. And that's it. That is my hybrid orchestral trailer track using free plugins, free sample libraries. So like I say, I'll leave links in the video description down below, and you can go download all these free sample libraries, and you can download my template and my presets, and you can get started writing trailer music straight away without having to spend any money, other than obviously the money you've already spent on Logic and an Apple Mac. But yes, and I will see you next time for another video. If you like it, then hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll bring out some more content when I can. Take care.